This is the Dan Patrick Show on Fox Sports Radio. Who are the best quarterbacks in the NFL?
Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers. Who else? Josh Allen's played great this year. I'm just off the top of my head, so I know I'm gonna miss people, and people are gonna say, "What about this guy? What about that guy?"
I know you're not big on Tom Brady at this point in time in his career. Fair?
No, I mean, there's a reason he didn't make the Pro Bowl with all the weapons that they have, and even the stats that they put up. You will admit that it's been kind of inconsistent, and he didn't play that well against some of the better teams. That's why
I would agree. I would agree. I would say that if we were like. My thing with the Tom Brady in Tampa is I think it's a bad fit. It's a bad fit considering his style the last 10 years, but it's especially a bad fit when you're 43 and now you're going to be asked to throw the ball deep downfield, which is something he hasn't done since he had Randy Moss, right?
Exactly.
And I think he's been working through that and trying to fix that, and it has gotten better. Look, if we go through it, are you an Aaron Rodgers or a Pat Mahomes or a Josh Allen guy for MVP?
I think it's Aaron Rodgers, and when I look at what he was able to accomplish, first of all, he leads in touchdowns, fewest interceptions, quarterback rating, and the other thing too, 3 games without Devontae Adams, 3 games without Aaron Jones. He doesn't have nearly the weapons that Patrick Mahomes has. And to put up the numbers. And then when I saw what he did against the Titans, right, everybody said that's the team the Packers can't beat. They run the football, blah, 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 blah. They kicked them in the face. It was 40-14 playing up in Green Bay. Aaron made it look easy, even in the snow, Doug. I've watched football for a long time, started covering the league back in 1986 at the Daily News in New York. I covered the Giants and Jets. And I'm going to tell you, he's the best quarterback I've ever seen. I'm not talking about most accomplished, just throwing the football and being able to maneuver. Am I right, Doug? You've watched him. I mean, I've never seen anybody.
Well, no, I've long said that, right? And then when Brady won his last Super Bowl, I was like, man, here's the thing, and is at the end of the day, we keep score in sports because that's what really matters. Right, that's what really matters is what the score is. You play to win. And
you know what I always say? My famous saying is sports has a short menu. Wins and losses, Doug. That's all there is.
Okay, so with that in mind, how big of a factor is wins and losses in your mind in determining how good a quarterback is?
I think it has something to do with it because I get it. Some teams are in a situation where defenses aren't as good or they don't have the best coach and game plan. So I get there's a lot of things. I think quarterbacks get too much credit when teams win and too much blame when they lose. And there's a whole lot of stuff, you know this, that goes into football. But winning is important. And at some point, it's like the Matthew Stafford thing in Detroit. I mean, let's just be honest. He was the number 1 pick. He has a big arm, Doug, right? He's put up unbelievable. He's put up Hall of Fame stats. He has. I call him Stat Patford because most of the stats come after the Lions are down 21-0 and defenses relax and he piles up these numbers. But he's beaten like 6 or 7 teams that finished over 500 in a 12-year stretch, and they have no playoff wins. And this guy was the first overall pick. People say, "Oh, they don't have any players in Detroit." Well, Calvin Johnson played in Detroit, and Ndamukong Suh played in Detroit. I can go on and on and on.
Okay,
and when you look at Stafford, I'm just saying he hadn't gotten the job done.
Okay, that's fair, right? Here would be my pushback. Do we think that Stafford has a well-run organization?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. Now, Matt Stafford, before he got there, right, in the 3 seasons before he got there, they won 0, 2, and 6 games. He gets there, and they win, and he becomes a starter in 2011, and they win 10 games, and they lose in the wild card. The next year was the year they won 4 games, and that was the year Calvin Johnson had the record-setting year, right? Yep. He's been in the playoffs 3 times, and I will grant you he's lost all 3 times. Okay, but they hadn't been in the playoffs in a decade before he got there. So while it's inarguable that he hasn't been what Rodgers has been. I said, like, Andrew Luck had Chuck Pagano, who was way over his head as a coach. We all know that. And he had Ryan Grigson, who's widely considered, if not the worst general manager in the history of the sport. He's in the conversation. And his worst year was like 9-7, right? So what I said the other day is, like, look, we talk about Deshaun Watson at times as if he's one of these top 5 dudes. And I love Deshaun Watson. I think he's tough. I think he's smart. I love the persona. I love what he did at Clemson. You know, he got cleated in the eye once last year and still made a touchdown pass. He had a lung that had been what's it called when you have your lung deflated and collapsed lung, and he had to take a van to Jacksonville, right? All that said, like, we put him in this uber elite class, and he makes uber elite money, and he was surrounded with all kinds of dudes, and we freaked out over the DeAndre Hopkins trade, which I wouldn't have made, but I understand why it was made in large part, so you could pay Deshaun Watson, right? And their franchise is almost exactly the same as it was before he got there. In the 4 years before he got there, they were 28-31. He has the franchise has virtually the same record. The franchise, the 4 years before he got there, was 1-2 in the playoffs, and they're 1-2 in the playoffs since he got there. So you tell me, as opposed to Rodgers and Breeze and Brady, and you pick the Hall of Fame caliber quarterback, which is what top 5 guys are, and when they're there, there's a dramatic difference in the franchise than before they're there.
No, I get it. At some point, you have to ante up. I agree with that. I can't sit here. It's not that he's not a dynamic player. He hasn't been able to elevate or move it forward. And that is exactly the same thing. Just to get back to Stafford for a minute,
yes.
You talk about, there were moments, Doug, and I don't know if you remember this, where Green Bay came to Detroit for the last game of the season, or maybe the next to last, and all the Lions had to do was beat the Packers. They had a good team that year, a few years back, beat the Packers at home. They would have won the division, which they've never done, and they would have gotten the bye to start the playoffs, and had a home playoff game, right? They would have had a home playoff game. And they get demolished. You know what I mean? Like, in that moment, there are moments, even when they lost to the Cowboys in the playoffs. Yes, there was a bad call in that game. Stafford gets the ball back with 2.5 minutes to go and 2 timeouts. There's your moment, Doug. You can look at the bad general manager, the bad players, the bad, the bad history, 1 playoff win since 1957. You can look at all of that. Matthew Stafford had a chance right there to change the franchise, to make something happen that hadn't happened. And in both of those situations, it didn't happen. He didn't do it. So that's what I look at people. So
now this does go counter, though, to your Tom Brady argument, right? Because Tom Brady, you can say whatever you want to say about a drop ball or a catch, whatever, but the dude has been to 9 Super Bowls.
But the only thing, Doug,
he won
I'll push back.
6 of them. He had an undefeated regular season.
The first Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl that they won
wasn't
how
about
many
him.
touchdowns?
I get it.
Okay,
wasn't
so I'm
about
glad,
him. I was there. I was watching.
It wasn't. He threw
remember.
1 touchdown in the entire postseason.
He did have
year.
a big drive at the end of that game. But yes, I'm with you. That was, for people who've forgotten, that was the first time that a team was introduced as a team. Forever, it had been, you get to the Super Bowl and they introduce these offensive linemen and defensive linemen you'd never heard of before, right? So they introduced the St. Louis Rams, who were the greatest show on turf. And they introduced,
an unbelievable team. They were double-digit,
Isaac Bruce,
right? Favorites.
And Marshall Faulk. And, I mean, we even knew their left tackle more than we knew most of the guys.
That team was unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And what the Patriots do? And now the New England Patriots, like, what? And they all come running out. It was about their team. And, yes, they hid him, right? They shield. It was a lot like Russell Wilson early in his career, where Russell Wilson
early on.
would okay, so, but Like, dude, we're both saying that at the end of the day, it's about rising the level of everyone around you and finding a way to win games. That has always been my thing with Aaron Rodgers. Like, look, I think Aaron Rodgers is incredible. I've never seen anyone do what he can do. And he does it every different way in which he can do it with his mind. He's done it clutch. He's done it on the road. He's done it in bad weather. He's done it in good weather. He's done it with good players, mostly with average players at wide receiver. He's not just a statue back there. He can throw on the run. He can run for a first down. Like, he does it. He's played hurt. Hell, they should have beat the Seahawks. He had a torn calf. And if not for the fact that the team simply couldn't field an onside kick and there's some miracle stuff.
It was that tight end. Jordy Nelson was right behind him. They told him on that
he's
kick.
Supposed to block. He's
Jordy
supposed to hit
Nelson.
block, yes.
Right.
Yes.
He wasn't supposed to catch the ball. He put his hand up and coughed up the football. That was his Super Bowl they were supposed to go to. No doubt.
Right, but you're agreeing. Here's my problem, though. I like congruent arguments. You're agreeing with me on some level on Deshaun Watson, who we both think is super talented, but is not translating into the wins that it should, regardless of all the other factors going into it.
Right.
And the same thing about Stafford, but why won't you then credit Tom Brady for being the winningest quarterback of all time?
I give him as far as when it comes to accolades, but when I look at that Patriots team, Doug, the first 3 Super Bowls were about Adam Vinatieri, who had the greatest kicker they've ever seen in the NFL, and their defense. And you talked about it with the greatest show on turf that scored 13 points in that Super Bowl. And then so those are the first 3 Super Bowls, which were more about Adam Vinatieri and about Bill Belichick's defense. And when you look at the last 3, I see total meltdowns, and it doesn't mean that Tom Brady didn't do what he was supposed to do when the door was open. But, Doug, you're at the 1-yard line. You're Seattle with the best running back in the league and 2 downs to get in. Beast Mode had over 100 yards in that Super Bowl.
But hold on, but you're dismissing the fact that on the very previous drive, Brady had led his team down the field to score to take the lead. Right?
No, I'm not discounting
job.
that. I'm not discounting that, but I'm saying, and Atlanta's up 28-3.
Yes.
They run the ball. I'm not even a football coach.
And he was terrible the first 2.5 quarters. But they're down 28-3. He got the ball, and they started scoring against a really good athletic Atlanta defense that had gotten after him. Right? Like these things did happen.
The last Super Bowl against the Rams, how many touchdowns did Tom Brady have in that Super Bowl?
One more than
No, he had
opponent.
0. He didn't have a touchdown.
Who cares? They won the game. Like, who cares? They won the game.
He had an interception and a fumble. I get it, but I'm just telling you, Tom Brady gets all the credit. They stopped the Rams team that was averaging 35 points a game. It was the 5th greatest offense in the history of the NFL, and Bill Belichick's defense stopped that Rams team. That's why they won that Super Bowl. It wasn't because of Tom Brady.
All right, listen, I'm with you in regards to people massively undervalue Belichick coaching, what he's been able to do. But here's what we'll do. Sean Merriman's going to join us next. Lights Out will join us next. We'll ask him, like, at some point, you got to, 9 Super Bowls.
No, I'm not. I didn't say that. All I'm saying is I'd rather
you
call
called him
Tom
the
Brady
luckiest quarterback of all time.
The luckiest of all time, more so than the GOAT. That's all.
He's Rob Parker. I'm Doug Gottlieb. Sean Merriman joins us. Having played in the league and played at such a high level in the league, how much should we factor in wins and losses and put on the quarterback's shoulders?
Well, this is the thing. It's such a quarterback-driven league now. It wasn't always like that in the past, right? Even the times I played, you can have some great quarterbacks, but they didn't run the whole entire team. Now, in the way that the game's changed over the last 10 years, you really got to look at the wins and losses being only on the quarterback's shoulders because they control everything. And they have so much power within, like some of these great quarterbacks. Let's take Patrick Mahomes, for example. He has so much power within the organization that he controls it, right? He's the CEO of that organization. So the reason why I say you take the wins and losses on the quarterback's shoulders because if a wide receiver's not playing well, he's dropping balls, he's not running his routes right, or he's not doing certain things, you go upstairs, you say, hey, I don't want this guy here, or he shouldn't be starting. And guess what? That guy's not going to be starting. So you have to, take everything with a grain of salt now and put more responsibility and more pressure on the quarterback because it really relies on how he plays and what he does.
Sean, how surprised are you that, speaking of Patrick Mahomes, that it appears Aaron Rodgers will win the MVP, and the year that he put together, he still has one more game, 44 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions, and the best quarterback rating. How surprised are you that he looks like he beat out Mahomes for MVP?
Not surprised at all. And I think the only people surprised is the Green Bay Packers. Right. You go out and you draft a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers had all the motivation this year to play extremely well. And I love it when a player has the ball in his court, right? Because you go out, you draft a guy, you basically telling Aaron Rodgers, like, hey, we're planning on moving on from you at some point, and now you go out and have one of the best years of his career. And I love that because now he can go to the organization and say, you know what, I'm out or else. So now he calls all the shots. He dictates his own future. If he wants to stay there, if he wants to go, however it wants to happen, because that's the message you send when you go out and you draft a quarterback as high as they did to eventually replace Aaron Rodgers well before his time is even up.
Yeah,
Doug, I want to just follow up real quick. How crazy is it to both of you guys that they never drafted a skilled player in the first round during Aaron Rodgers' entire career in Green Bay? How crazy is that?
It's beyond crazy to me because look at the year, and don't get me wrong, to me, I think Devontae Adams is probably top 2 or 3 wide receivers in the National Football League. So he came on as doing extraordinary things. But you didn't really give Aaron Rodgers a whole lot early on. I mean, they went out and got Mercedes Lewis. They put a couple other pieces, but you didn't go out and get Antonio Brown. You didn't go out and get a big stud and say, "Hey, Aaron Rodgers, we're going to help you out some." You're talking about a guy who continuously does things himself, and he's been doing it in that organization for so long, and that's why. And I want to bring it back to the point where I said that's why I'm even more baffled that they go out and draft a guy that's behind him. You got all these other positions to fill, and you go out and draft a guy, and now he's had his best year, and now they're going to have a problem on their hands going forward, regardless of how Aaron Rodgers said it publicly. They're going to have a problem going forward because they're going to have to make some real decisions.
I could not disagree with you guys more. Couldn't disagree with you guys more. Like, look, Aaron Rodgers is 37 years old. Jordan Love is, everyone knows he's a prospect. He's a project. He's 2 years away. And in 2 years, I mean, it's reasonable to think that Aaron Rodgers might not be the same quarterback. And you have to prepare for that day, especially if you're drafting in the 20s. When you have Aaron Rodgers, you're never going to be drafting in the top 15. Okay, you're just not. Okay, so you're not going to you'd have to move heaven and earth to move up to get a quarterback in the draft. And, like, look, Jordan Love is not what Aaron Rodgers was as a prospect, but this is how it worked where they went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, maybe to Jordan Love. And if it doesn't work, if Jordan Love isn't any good, as long as he never plays, nobody's ever going to know, and he'll retain some of that value. And, like, we can sit here and go, we don't love their wide receivers, or who'd they need to add? They won 13 games last year. They're going to win 13 games this year. They're going to have home field advantage throughout. And they believe in their evaluation, right? Like, look, there's a reason.
Doug, the other, I hear that. The only thing is, they got to the NFC Championship game last year and got annihilated.
Agreed.
So my only point is,
should they have taken a defensive player because they couldn't stop the run? It's fair. It's fair.
Yes,
it's absolutely fair.
That's the only thing that can help Aaron Rodgers this year.
You don't think they had, and they just picked up, I know it's very late, they just picked up Snacks Harrison,
right.
And all he's got to, and it's just, can he stop the run in that one game? Which, by the way, against the Tennessee Titans, the team that runs the football, they showed they can stop the run this past weekend.
They kept Derrick Henry under 100 yards for the first time in 9 road games. Right.
And I mean, and look, they drafted A.J. Dillon in the second round. People are like, why are you drafting a running back in the second round? Well, it's because, one, look at how well he played this weekend. Two, Aaron Jones' contract is up. He signed with Drew Rosenhaus. He wants to get paid. And everyone who covers the sport knows what you don't want to do is that big long-term second running back contract, or let somebody else pay that. And if he doesn't want to play ball and take a reasonable salary. So I think the Packers are setting themselves up to be competitive for the next 10 years, not just for 1 year. And, by the way, during this 1 year, they're the best team in the NFC.
Yeah, but I think you're speaking from the organization standpoint. But
Yes.
I understand that part, but I'm also telling you that as a player,
Yes.
as a player, you don't draft a guy that high. Now, if they seen a guy that's still up the 6th or 7th round, and he got some talent, maybe Aaron Rodgers go down, he can step in for him and do something, that's fine. But you brought him in to say, you know what, we are going to be done with you soon, right? I mean, if they want to sit a guy 1 or 2 years and they know he's going to come in and be a starter in 1 or 2 years because he has the talent to do so, and you know your starting quarterback can't get it done, I understand completely from the organization standpoint. But to do what they did and expect Aaron Rodgers to go out there and play miraculously every single time, he's going to have a lot of pull and a lot of power here coming up here shortly. And the organization is going to have to make a decision because that doesn't sit well with players. And not just players, but anybody. If someone comes in your position, in your job, and they hire somebody else,
they had just given him look, there's no getting rid of him for the next 2 years, right? Like Aaron Rodgers he has 2 more years where financially it would cripple the franchise. They're not getting rid of him. He knows it, right? So I understand that on some level you could sit there and go,
are you going to sit a guy for 4? Who drafts someone that high to sit him for 4 years? No one does that.
For 3 years. That's exactly what the Green Bay Packers did. That's exactly what the Green Bay Packers did with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, but they didn't move up. Like my only thing is they didn't move up to go get a quarterback at that point. Aaron Rodgers fell in their lap. And here's the other part.
So did Jordan Love.
They gave up a
4th-round pick.
But you just went to the NFC Championship game.
Yes.
My point is, it's great that you've had Aaron Rodgers. It's great that he's going to have 3 MVPs. It's great that you won the NFC North all these times. But the Packers with Aaron Rodgers should have won more than 1 Super Bowl.
Okay, but we can't listen. We can't go back. We can't go back to what they did.
So I don't care about 3 years from now. They should have been thinking about we have Aaron Rodgers. We still have a chance.
You do have a chance. And you look. A lot of people went crazy. You draft a wide receiver. Okay, the first thing is all the first round wide receivers were gone at that point in time. And by the way, 16 up until this year, and this year was a historically good wide receiver draft. Over the previous 4 years, the 19 first round draft picks that were drafted in the first round, 16 of them were busts. It's a really hard position because it's so different in the NFL than these spread offenses. Okay, secondly, if you want to tell me that they were close last year, I agree with you. And they had to get better. I agree with you. They have gotten better. And people go, you should draft a wide receiver. If you draft a wide receiver, that hurts the development of Marcus Valdez-Scantling and of some of these other guys who have developed. And those guys have gotten better. And the team they're the best team in the NFC. I don't know what people want. Right? They're the best team in the NFC, and they protected Watch the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. Okay, look at Ben Roethlisberger. Look, I know he played really well Sunday, but what has everybody said? Man, Ben Roethlisberger looks shot. He looks shot. And you know what the Green Bay Packers don't want to be? They don't want to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, where at some point in time, Aaron Rodgers is going to lose it, and you want to have a guy there who's been studying, been preparing, who you can throw in, and there won't be this massive drop-off. That's what happened in New England when they drafted Garoppolo, and and this is to your point, where Brady went in and goes, hey, man, him or me, and they sent Garoppolo packing, which could very well happen with Jordan Love. But, again, the plan was smart, and that's what the Packers are executing.
But Doug, one thing about this, who can't get better when Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback? You're talking about busts and these other. Which one of these busts, wide receivers that were drafted, had Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback? I just feel like over the last decade or so, they've been relying on Aaron Rodgers so much to be Aaron Rodgers to go out and do things on his own that they're willing to risk and sacrifice doing anything bigger for their organization because everything is on him. Like I said, if they wanted to draft a guy in the 5th or 6th round or 3rd round, later on, and like Rob just said, fell in his lap, no problem. I understand that. But you do the things you're doing, you're saying that, hey, you fix this play. And mind you, one of the main reasons why they drafted Aaron Rodgers is because he kept getting hurt. He kept having these injuries, back-to-back. He never really finished the season healthy. That's one of the main factors they did it. So they basically said, hey, these injuries keep piling up or whatever is going on, we're going to have a guy here to replace you. it backfired on them. And I'm not saying it backfired on them in a way of them winning. Obviously, they're a great team, but it's going to backfire on them at the end of the day.
Sean, enjoy Guadalajara.
Yes.
Have a happy New Year. By the way, everybody should
Happy
download.
New Year, God. Happy New Year to everybody out there. Stay safe. Don't drink and drive, man. Be responsible.
Yeah, and download the Lights Out podcast. It is excellent, and Sean
doubt.
Sean knows so many people, not just from the MMA world, but from the clothing design world. I mean, the dude is a world traveler. It's
I
outstanding.
wouldn't mess with that guy. He's in the bare knuckle fighting. Can you imagine that?
That's the guy. That's the guy that you go. I'm with Sean. He's with
I'm
me.
with Sean. I'm
We're
hanging
good.
out with Sean,
We're
right?
Sean Merriman. Happy New Year to you, Sean. Sean Merriman joining us live from Guadalajara. That's my first guest from Guadalajara.